Hello, my inwards. It's been a while. I've gotten grounded. I've done. I don't know how long it's been. Like a freaking month. Yeah, it's been 2 months since I last uploaded. Uh, I'm really sorry about that. I'll upload a lot more. So when I first started this channel, one of the first people to contact me was German Empire Ball, and he asked if we can make a lore video on my mod. I said yes. He made that video, and now we're collaborating. And we might be making a YouTube collaboration channel. So, we decided to make a video on one of Texas state independence. So, how do you feel about this collaboration, German Empire Ball?
Oh, I feel pretty good about it.
Haha, smaller naive channel. You think this will be easy.
My channel is older than yours, and we're only 60 subscribers apart from each other.
Okay, listen here, you little shit. All jokes aside, this video is awesome to make with him, and you should check out his channel. But this video is probably the most challenging video yet. Why, you might ask? Well, the Republic of Texas was a challenging one. Even if it stayed independent, it would most likely get annexed either way, by Mexico or the US. So after doing some research, I found out it could be done. And it has to do with the name of the most hated city in Texas by all the outsiders. Austin. So the divergence point in this timeline is in 1836, where Stephen F. Austin won the 1836 election. The way this occurs is that Sam Houston does not join the election race, which caused Austin to lose. This would radically change Texas's course from annexation to expansion. Since Austin is presumably a nationalist, this would also create a split in the nonpartisans into the Unionists, ones who wanted annexation, and nationalists. You might be wondering though, didn't Austin die of 1836? Well, the butterfly effect causes him not to die of pneumonia. The one butterfly effect I do like. Many of Austin's policies would probably be nationalistic, and he would probably take many points from Marabou Lamar, but unlike Lamar, he wouldn't have idiotic policies and attack our actual allies. And actually, he wouldn't get us into more debt, I believe. I can also see his policies and future political leaders' policies leading to a war with Mexico. But with Austin, I can see economic, spending, and military plans similar to the United States when it first started. A policy that starts at the engine of a nation and creates economic prosperity along with stability, and allowing high immigration for Texas, considering how he was an impresario himself, which was a colony organizer, and gather up allies for Texans. War with Mexico would be inevitable. I can't see any way war with Mexico could be avoided, but whether it starts over California, which Texas was expanding into, or over some other area, a war with Mexico would start. Texas will certainly win this conflict, whether they get support from rebellious areas like the Rio Grande, Utah, California, or they get help from the US. They would win the conflict, and probably take California, which I'm gonna do. Mexico at this time was extremely weak. I mean, they could barely defeat the French, let alone a coalition of rebellious areas, plus some US intervention. After the war, Texas would annex California and complete its own actual manifest destiny. And with the end of the war, questions of Texas annexation by the US would ultimately be ended. The Unionist Party would either die like the Federalists in the United States or be reformed to try to keep its party relevant. Most likely they'd take a more progressive stance and more pacifist and Theodoran policy before Theodore Roosevelt existed. Also, with the confirmation that Texas will remain independent, many American settlers would arrive in Texas. And with the discovery of oil in the heartland of Texas, and gold in California, the Texan population would explode. In our timeline, Texas had a population of 600,000 by 1860. With it being independent, it would most likely even grow more rapidly, especially after the Civil War. What Texas would do on the issue of slavery is debatable, to say the least. While most of Texas land was not suitable for cotton plantations and is mostly ranch country, it is very easy to say that slavery will die by the 1850s. But the southeastern part of Texas is perfect for cotton. In fact, many still grow cotton to this day. I've drove through those areas, which would be the most populated part of Texas in this timeline. So I can see slavery staying in Texas until, at most, the 1890s. But Texas would not get involved in the Civil War simply because picking a side could start Texas's own civil war. So they stay neutral. Unlike popular theory, the US would be okay with this, except for the policy after the war. In our timeline, Brazil was a safe haven for Confederate sympathizers and slave owners because of their laws allowing slavery. And actually, our timeline, they didn't ban slavery until the 1880s. In this timeline, it would be Texas instead of Brazil. A lot more Confederate sympathizers would move to Texas. Considering Texas was a lot more Anglo-nation than Brazil, expect the Civil War Texas population not to be in the thousands, but in the millions. And so slavery would be a integral part of Texas for at least a couple years, until it was ultimately outlawed due to pressures from the US or Britain. But the mass increase of southern settlers to the east wouldn't translate well to the west. While the east would mostly be southerners, like today, the west would be a different story. It would be a hodgepodge of different groups. Northerners, British, and East Asian settlers would most likely settle in California, and the Mormons in modern-day Utah, and the Hispanic and natives in areas like Arizona and New Mexico. And with them cut off from the eastern heartland, these groups would feel disconnected and oppressed by the eastern, more populated area of Texas. With the one feeling most oppressed would be the Californians, with an entire mountain range cutting them off, while the groups in the middle might feel a little different considering they are closer in proximity to the east. So more southerners would be an area, unlike California, where there are little settlers in the area. You could make the claim that the Texas government would make a railroad to transport oil, cotton, or gold to the Pacific. But still, southerners would be so concentrated far away in the east, it would be impossible to mend their differences. With the settlers in the east growing cotton and the US most likely boycotting Texan cotton due to slavery, Texas would most likely have to industrialize, either in the northern area, modern-day Dallas area, or Colorado, or in California. But industry would most likely be in the northern areas, would come up more likely due to German factories. Due to Texas's high German population, the German Empire would most likely be a close ally of Texas, along with the British, French, and the US. Most likely being a stranger relationship than before because of the slavery deal, but anyways. But with the industrialization of Texas, this would ultimately bring socialist ideals to Texas and California, and the Socialist Populist Party, moderate socialists, not Stalinists or communists, would enter the ring, and it would ultimately disrupt the Unionist Nationalist Party hold, similar to the Labour Party in Britain. And these socialist ideals would be most popular in California. Some things in alternate universes don't change, do they? In the 1908 presidential election, the Socialist Populist candidate for president, Upton Sinclair, would run on more representation to California and some more socialistic policies. In the election, he won the most votes, but not the majority required to win. Well, obviously because of the three different parties. And the election went to the Texas Congress, where the Nationalists and the Unionists compromised and ultimately voted against Sinclair and put the Unionist Thomas Campbell in as president. After this, Upton Sinclair declared the election was stolen from him and the Socialist Populist Party by Eastern Texas, and said one of the necessary companions of the Texan government is the misrepresentation of California. It demanded for California to secede to its pre-Texan borders. So the main California coastal states seceded and declared independence and formed the Republic of California. Thomas Campbell and his government threatened war and gave an ultimatum. California surrendered and rejoined the Republic. California refused and Texas went to war. The United Republic was split into two. And that's where I'm going to end it. And this is where German Empire Ball will pick up. So, German Empire Ball, this is now your part.
Yes, sirree, you are correct. It's now my part.
Remember, as always, like, subscribe, and watch part 2 on German Empire Ball's video. And subscribe to him as well. Also, Liberty Lost part 2 will be coming up next. And I will most likely do a marathon through, except for unless it goes past May the 4th, because May the 4th I have a special surprise. But anyways, as always, goodbye.
Brain warm, a strange form, something kind of lyrical. Biggie the bastard, so that's kind of spiritual.